Hello, I'm Jack Rickard with EVTV. This is my compadre, Consigliore El Brano Noto.
Hey, good to be here.
Brain, it's not Friday.
No, in fact, it's Saturday. And
how come we're shooting on Saturday in the heat?
Well, we just have had parts troubles. We've been testing our little brains out and really spent the last couple of weeks working on the Spyder, the last week really full time.
I know. We just test and test and test. I never get any smarter. That's how it seems this week, until right here at the end. And I think we've got some answers. I don't think you're going to find them very satisfying. We have all kinds of news from the world of electric vehicles. We don't have time for it. You don't either.
That's right. You don't. That's right.
I'll give you a little break in a little while with a whiteboard where you can get your blankie and your memory foam, NASA space foam pillow.
Pacifier.
And we'll do some of that. But we need to move along pretty briskly.
All right. Okay.
First, we have not quit working on everything else to do the Spyder, although it seems that way. We did a little Cobra stuff this week.
Yeah, we did some Cobra stuff this week, yep.
Let's take a look.
All right.
Ring, while you've been playing Spyder.
I've heard a lot of banging and cussing over here.
Well, I stopped when you were filming, but it's slowed things down. I've been continuing with the Cobra, which we need to, I'd really like to get done before the show. We, I don't remember where we last left them, but you and I mounted the motor to the transmission.
Yeah, they saw the motor go in, yeah.
Did they?
Yeah, saw the motor go in.
Okay, and I recall we had the two Miata mounts here on the front of the transmission. Without even Lucian's help, we cut a 3-inch hole in a 3/8 piece of aluminum plate, which I haven't really carved up yet because I might use this to support some things. And I took the drawing and we actually marked the holes, and would you believe I had to make 3 a little bit oversized, but most of them actually were kind of dead on, which was hard to do. We put our bolts in a Nordlock washer on each of those.
That looks good.
On the back side here, and I'll show a close-up at this at some point, I've taken a couple of pieces of the hardest steel I've ever seen.
Yeah, we got all that steel.
We got it out of a building down on Broadway where they'd put in an engineered I-beam.
Yeah.
And they had some angle iron laying around, and I took some of it, and nothing would cut this stuff.
No, in fact, you touched the saw blade with it, and
a brand new saw blade,
and just ruined
I cut into it about 1/16 of an inch, and that was the end of the blade. But it drilled okay. And so I took these little pieces of angle iron and put some holes in them and bolted it to the plate, and then with a big long bolt down through another set of Miata polyurethane engine mounts.
Those mounts,
Now that's going to isolate the end of our motor to where any torque will have a second place other than the transmission.
It'll be distributed
transmission mounts. And the result is a pretty solid motor mounting system. We've got it bolted to the transmission, and the transmission isolated in the back and at 2 points on the frame in the front. And now with this plate, the 3/8 aluminum was about half of the weight of some 16-gauge steel. And so that worked out, but I did use steel on the angles that actually affixed to the polyurethane.
To the mount, to the
mounts.
frame,
And so we're mounted pretty good, and we're not going to transmit much vibration through those mounts. The little black thing that I had, which was really from Jim Husted, broke when I put it on. So I took one of our Cadillac Escalade mounts for the XS turbos blower and put that there. I'm thinking to make a bracket or a plate that goes from the transmission motor joint out up over our 3/8 inch plate to mount the controller on top.
Okay.
That would get us some really short leads from the controller to the motor.
To the motor, yeah.
The rest of it at this point has to do with battery boxes. We've, now Brian said we could take off those exhaust pipes and use that space and he'd work out something to get them back on. So that's his problem at this point, as far as I'm concerned. We pulled that off. I've had some boxes made the basic aluminum box, painted it black so it'll disappear.
It'll disappear, that's right.
And this is going to carry just one cell wide, but 8 cells long.
Okay.
And I've got one for each side that goes into that little area. I can stick it in here.
Oh, there. That's nice. Yeah.
And kind of cantilevers out over the frame. And I'll put some angle iron under there on this thing to help hold it up. And we'll bolt that down through the frame. And it'll come out almost to the motor. And I've got one for the other side. Here's what I got messed up. We're probably going to have to pull the brake reservoir to get it in.
Oh.
It fits in there nice, but getting it in there, this is my standard mistake. I design a box, it'll fit in the spot I've got for it perfectly, but there's no way to put it there.
Yeah. And the two sides are a little different. This one has the whole reservoir and master cylinder set up.
Well, you got the choice of that, or we can pull the motor and put the boxes in first.
The master cylinder, since the brake lines are going to have to be bled anyway.
So that'll give us 16 more cells. And then I've made one more box. This is going to be open top. This one we will use to show off our batteries. I've painted it black so it'll disappear. And this will go down. Well, it may go down. We'll get our hood latch off. Into this area in front of the motor. It clears our aux shaft by about 2 inches.
Yeah,
and I'm going to have that stood off of the bottom frame there and clear of our steering. And this will hold 18 cells, and the cells are going to come right up to the top of the box. So this is going to be open.
Okay, cool.
And so they'll get to look at some batteries.
Yeah, people like to look at the batteries.
People like to see the batteries.
Yeah.
But the real thing is, if I make it, these cells are about 9 inches high. I'll typically make the box 11, and that gives me room for straps and cables and so forth without touching the lid.
Right.
And I almost always put a lid on.
Yeah.
For example, on these two side things, I could put a charger, for example, on top of one of these. I could put a DC to DC converter. Yeah. We could even mount the controller on top of one of these and affix it to the lid.
Yeah, we could.
And I've just got 1/4-inch 20s. There's a piece of angle iron in here, and it's threaded for these little 1/2-inch, 1/4-inch 20s.
Right, okay.
And so I can pull that and affix it to the lid and bolt it right back on, and it'll be very firmly mounted.
Yep, I like that.
A DC to DC converter, a charger, something like that. In this case, we would get into our opening hinge on the car.
Yeah.
And so I want these batteries to not stick up any higher than they have to.
Then they have to, yeah.
We have to raise it a little bit to clear the steering box, but I think I can get another 18 cells in there. That 18, this 8, and that 8 would be about 34 cells, wouldn't it?
Yep, yep.
And I have 104 in a car now, and that gives me 138.
138, yeah.
In pairs, that's 231 volts.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I'd like to be at 240. What I'm thinking there is we make us another little shelf across here on top of, again, the transmission motor connection, and I might be able to get 6 or 8 cells laid down across here.
Across there, okay.
And that would get us above 240 volts. We're trying to take advantage of the high voltage nature of the 11HV.
Of the 11HV, yeah.
Even with the Hellwigs, we can do 200 volts. 231 is getting to be pretty good.
Yeah.
If we did 1400 amps, though, we're going to be below 200 volts.
Oh, yeah, it's going to sag.
But that gets up, if we get 240 volts, we'll be looking at about 375 horsepower in this car.
That's pretty good. That's a nice small block.
We're probably going to be looking at 41 or 42 kilowatt hours in this pack. I was having bad dreams about this car, trying to figure out where to put batteries.
Yeah, for a while before we got the motor in, and then once we first got it in, still and then now it's kind of working out.
Yeah,
we just had to noodle it out a little.
Yeah, it's going to be, and we'll still see. I don't like these builds where you can't do maintenance on things.
Right.
You're going to be able to get to this motor. You'll be able to pull this motor without moving a battery.
So that's cool. Yeah.
But you'll be able to see it. You'll be able to get to it. You'll be able to add things to the aux shaft, for example. Our blower will be up here where we can get at it, and all of that will be visible and will be accessible.
Yeah.
Even with 41, 42 kilowatt hour pack, and you probably have to pull this battery box to get in that one.
To get to the front one, yeah.
Some of the batteries are going to be kind of inaccessible, so that's a problem. But we'll be able to work on the car, add things and so forth, without having to take it completely apart again.
Okay, great.
So that's 3 more battery boxes for the Cobra. The motor's installed, and we have the front isolated. And I think that's going to get us a little further down the road.
I think so.
I need you to do me a dashboard.
I know.
You know how bad I am at that. I was not good in art class.
And we'll see how good
Jackie
I am.
Roberts and Susie Rhodes made me look pretty sad in second grade art class. So you're going to have to piece that together.
Okay.
And we'll go from there.
All righty.
Okay.
NetGain Motors, home of the Warp, Transwarp, and Impulse motors, introduced the improved Warp 9 motor. The Warp 9 is a 9 1/4 diameter series wound DC motor with a double-ended shaft featuring 26 improvements for 2010. Externally, the terminal studs have been enlarged from 3/8 to 1/2 inch diameter. Bigger is better. On the inside, a larger commutator, new brush composition, and split brush design with heavier springs handle even higher voltages and currents than before. Our new fan increases airflow by almost 50% over typical paddle-style fans, and all this translates into improved performance. For even more performance or larger applications, take a look at NetGain's Warp 11 motor, an 11 3/4 diameter series wound DC motor for even greater torque and power. Since 2002, NetGain Motors has been leading the EV industry with precision, performance, and price. Visit us at go-ev.com. NetGain Motors, warp power to go.
That's a lot. Man, we were worried about putting batteries in that car until we could.
I was losing sleep over where we were going to put all the batteries. You know, it's all going to work out.
And now we got plenty of room.
It's just all part of God's plan.
Yep, we got plenty of room.
We don't have plenty of room, but we will get enough batteries in there. We'll certainly do 230 volts. I think we've still got a shot at 240.
Yep.
And I'm told that the controller was supposed to ship this week.
Oh, good. Okay.
And so we should have that next week.
Perfect.
We have the motor in, and it's coming along.
Yes. Very good.
He's wanting it here by the show in full paint and interior, and that's not going to happen.
That is not going to happen.
But we're going to be pressed to get it running by then. If you can do a quick dashboard for me, that would be a big help.
Really big help.
Let's talk about the Speedster and the Spyder.
Okay. All right.
And
man, we've been at it hard.
This has been something. First, we had quite a debacle getting the upgrade to the running gear, which, as it turns out, I still think is where our efforts belong.
Yeah.
4 shipments, 3 months, and $3,100 later, here's what it looks like.
All right. And what we're going to do is we pulled the wheels. That's really nothing that you guys need to, if you can't pull a wheel, I don't think I would attempt doing this. So we've got the wheels off. As you can see, here was part of our problem. We've got our brake rotor sitting way back here. We've got this wide 5 plate here. We've got this adapter plate to adapt it to a Porsche 5-spoke. We've just got a bunch of stuff here. So we've got the wheel off. What's a good idea to do is to take either some forceps or vice grips or something and clamp your brake lines. We've got 2 lines coming out of here, and I've got 1 clamp lower, but I wanted you to see. I just took a little set of flat vice grips, so they're going to see, a lot of times they're staying here for a couple days. So either a little forceps or a vice grip will work just fine. What we want to do first, in this case with a 5/8" wrench, is go ahead and remove this brake line from the caliper. You want to get that brake line off, because if you get that caliper off, it's hard to hold it in your hand, hold it down, and try to wrestle with the thing, so you can get some good leverage here. So we're just going to go ahead and loosen that up while it's up here, and probably aren't going to take it all the way off, because it's just we really don't need to. What we're going to do now at this point is going to take a 7mm Allen, and in these particular calipers, and I'll show it when I get off, there are 2 big metal bolts back here that actually hold them together. So we're going to go ahead and set up our 7mm, and just going to release these guys out of here. And kind of long steel bolts will do the 2 of them. And what that's going to do is take this caliper housing off from the bracket. This is quite a big setup here, and heavy. And we're going to be replacing that with the, and we showed you the Willwood caliper, and that is going to reduce our weight by quite a bit. So again, in this case, and a lot of your cars are going to be even different than this. They're not going to be, you're not working with the same vehicle. So we're going to go ahead and let that hang. A lot of times you don't want to do that, but we're replacing the caliper, the line, and everything is coming on out of here. Take the pads out. And this is what you do if you were replacing them in this car. We got nice looking pads. So we're going to go ahead and remove this with a 6mm Allen, and let's get this. And this just holds it. It'll back off just like a regular nut. But this Allen head here just keeps this thing from rotating when you don't want it to. So grab us a wrench on here, and we're just going to go ahead and loosen this up. Take that off. And if you notice, this is the opposite thread, so when you go to put this on, don't get all worried about it. Now, with the caliper off, and we should be able to just yank this off of there. And we're going to take that entire assembly. We're going to be using this again, this little washer, and if you notice here, it's going to be hard to see. There's a little tab on it. That tab lines up on the axle and keeps that washer from rotating, and we will be using that again. So we're going to clean that, and we're just going to rub this down because we are going to put some new grease on this. And that's our spindle. We'll be reusing that spindle. What we're going to do now, the rest of that caliper is this caliper bracket, and we're going to go ahead and take that off now. And this is the stuff you'll find when you're working on a car that someone else built, or that you get used or whatever. You may have different size bolts, and things will not always work out. But don't despair. Just go back to the tool chest. So this whole caliper bracket was part of the was actually part of the caliper. That out. Looks like we got that one. Good. Yeah, and as you can see, a 16 doesn't fit on there. So 2 different size bolt heads. Oh well. Okay, so that's our caliper bracket. And as you can see, that's kind of big and heavy, and this caliper is pretty big and heavy. So let's get that out of there. Back here, we have the where the hard brake lines union with the rubber brake line, and we're going to need a. Let's just make sure what we've got here. And it's right back here. It's kind of difficult to see, but you've got a. You can run either a 7/16 or an 11 and a 17 millimeter. Okay. It's a little clip back here, and you've seen me fighting with these before, that you just want to pull this thing off, and now we've got our caliper with the line and everything off of there, and we are going to replace all of this with a very lightweight aluminum bracket and an aluminum Willwood caliper, and that's going to take quite a bit of weight off of this vehicle. Next thing we're going to pull off is the shock absorber. 17 millimeter on the bottom shock absorber nut, and just take that out of there. And a 15, I believe, for the top, maybe a 14, let's see. Yeah, 14 millimeter. And again, in this particular application, depends on what you've got. These are some aftermarket shocks, and I can't tell you exactly if you have stock ones or some KYBs or Bilsteins, whatever may be on your vehicle by the time you work on it, what it may take. But this application is taking a 14. Okay, so pull that. Little rubber. We've got the bolt off, these little rubber boots here. Should be able to just knock that shock right out of there. And that is everything stripped down at this point. So we've got the shock off. We're down to the spindle, steering knuckle. We've got our brake line here, and we're just going to go ahead and clean this. We're also going to have to show you how we put the bearings into the new hub. So which is just, we're going to do that next. So we'll go ahead and show you how to do that, and then we'll assemble all this. All right, before we start on the installation of all this, you can see we've cleaned all this down, and we'll start to put it together here in a couple of minutes. We want to talk a little bit about why we did this, which we did, but really what we got, which was a decrease in our unsprung weight. So let me just give you a couple of numbers here. So that caliper assembly that I showed you, that big bracket, and the brake pads, we went from 11.1 pounds with that big assembly that was on here to 3.7 pounds with this Willwood, this is all aluminum stuff here. 3.7 pounds for these, including their brake pads. Those are even smaller. So we got a savings there of 7.4 pounds. Our rotor assembly, we showed you that. The rotor assembly, the stock one, big, had that adapter plate on it. This rotor assembly, we were looking at 22.7 pounds on that stock one. The new one, the aluminum housing and everything, 13.3. So we're looking at a 9.4 savings there for 16.8 savings in weight on each wheel. So we've got, what, a 33.6 savings just in the rotors, calipers, brake pads up here up front. Shocks. We went from that, we're going to be able to go from that, the shock with the spring, which we really had to use to hold the car up a bit because we didn't want it to sag, to these KYB, the GR2s. We're looking at a 4.5 in that shock we took off, and 3 pounds for this shock. So we're saving another 1.5 pounds on each side in shock absorbers. Tires and wheels are Fuchs knockoff with the 165 80/15 tire was 31.1 pounds versus 29.4 for a 185/65/15 on those on the wheels that we got, the Weld racing wheels. So overall, we went from 69.4 pounds total in weight to 49.4. So we took a 20-pound decrease in unsprung weight up front. So in that action of the front end, we like to say that those paws are going to be a little bit lighter in the front of this Spyder. So let's take a look and see how all this lightweight parts go on this vehicle. All right, so what we did here, and you'll find this sometimes when these torsion bars are hanging here, your shock just in the extended length just isn't long enough. So we just put a little jack under it, lifted it up, and we're looking pretty good. I'm going to put our bolt on it. We've got our one on top. This is a 14 millimeter. We're just going to go ahead and tighten this up. One thing with a shock absorber, when you put this on, it's got these little rubber bushings and then the big metal washers on both sides. You don't want to see these bushings too distended in here. You just want them to touch and not be compressed too much. You don't want them to bulge out. So just tighten this thing down till it gets sucked up in there and it's on tight. And yeah, usually about a 1/2 inch. It's looking pretty good of thread. And again, with the 14 millimeter in this shock, and that's up there and just starting to deform a tiny bit. And that's when you just want to stop. We're going to tighten this one in the back here. It's got 17 millimeter. Okay, we'll get that on nice and tight. This is a nylock, so it's not going to go anywhere. We'll go ahead and drop this off. In fact, it should be able to. It's up there now. Yeah, that was all of our extended length. That's why we couldn't get to it. All right, we're going to put the brake line in. It goes in exactly the same way that it came out. We got to put it through that little hole there. Get this all started. We're going to use you're going to use an 11 millimeter or a 7/16 and a 11/16 wrench. Just get that brake line nice and tight. Again, I know you can't see a lot, but just take my word for it. And that should be about it. Okay. We've got that clip that we took off before, and you want it to bow out against this tab so it'll hold it goes into a slot here, so push that brake line all the way through. And got it in all the way by hand. Sometimes you need a hammer to tap that. We spent about 10 minutes looking for the hammer in here. It's a bad day when Jack can't find the hammer, but I think I've hit it. So there we go. So we've got the brake line on. We've got the shock on. Now we get to start doing the fun stuff. So we get to put on the aluminum caliper bracket. So we've got these, not countersunk, I guess they're, can't remember what you exactly call those bolts. We don't need any other type of nut or anything, but I do want to use a little bit of Loctite on them. And we're just going to drop some in there and get that first one started. That Loctite will just harden up like a little bit of glue. We use the blue so that we can get these things off without having to break any tools, but it's just nice in an application where you don't have a lock washer, and you know how we like to use the Nord locks, where you just can't use them everywhere, and we don't want this going anywhere. And this is a 6mm Allen. Gonna go ahead and just run those back. One last one here. When we're done with that, we'll snug them down. And you saw we wiped all this off, grease is off, everything. Trying to keep my hands as clean as I can when I'm working with brakes. And we'll clean everything off again later with brake cleaner. That was tight enough. Okay, so now those are on. Now what we're going to do is take our caliper and just prepare it slightly. This is nice versus the rubber because you've got this like a regular, you know, the regular fittings that we like, the AN fittings. This will swivel. Sometimes when you tighten a brake line up and they don't have swivels, they'll want to coil up on you. You don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do, here we got a little tab that says lift tab. So there must be some surprise under there, and there is. This is where the fitting, where the brake line will go in. We've got a nice little fitting. Go ahead and pop that in there. Use a 7/16. All right, so what we're going to have to do first is grease these bearings. You don't want to put them in dry and then just slop some grease on them. Bearing races, we're not going to grease. Let's see how the bearings fit in here. This race is what we're going to end up pressing into here, but we need grease inside here. We're using some all-purpose grease. You know, it doesn't have to be super high temperature. And you can get bearing, you know, grease presser inners, but, you know, I just found there's just no other way around it but to get into the grease and be one with the grease. When you're done with this, you're going to want to clean your hands. First, maybe put some on the, we'll put some on the spindle, on that front spindle, because there is a seal that goes on here in the rear that if you put grease on it, it just wants to. And if you can see what I'm doing, I'm just putting grease on my finger and I'm just working it, you know, I'm just working it in. I mean, we have some pretty cool tools here at EVTV, but there's stuff that we're only going to use one time that, you know, this is how most people in their, you know, in their shop at home are going to be packing a bearing. And this is one of the ways to do it. It just takes a few minutes and you'll just keep working from both sides and from the outside and just keep pressing grease in there. It'll disappear. You'll be amazed that the grease just disappears and it's inside the bearing. Like I said, you can use a bearing packer, but or you can be the bearing packer, one of the two. You can see I'm just kind of putting it on and just kind of sliding it in, and that grease is not going anywhere but inside the bearing. And I'm sure that everyone will have their own way of doing this, and I'd love to hear from you in another lifetime. This is not the most fun part. And then just do it from the other side as well. And you'll kind of feel the bearing getting a little heavy. I mean, it's amazing how much grease gets inside there. And that's pretty good to get us started. You can look at it. If you can see gaps in there that don't have grease, you know, it should just like one continuous, like you've just filled it up with grease, and that's kind of about how good it gets. That's the big one. We'll do the same thing with the, this is the outer bearing. It's a little easier to load. These needles are actually a little bit bigger, and you can see a little better. But you just want to do the same thing and just keep running the edge of your finger over that. It's good not to go into the bucket and get more grease, because you really do want to see the grease disappear. You want to see it go into the bearing, and if you keep grabbing grease, you really don't get that effect that you can be confident that you packed it in there. So we are packing this bearing here. This one won't take as long as the other one. Now we're going to go ahead and put some, so I think I've got it all in there. And I would say that we have a couple of pack bearings, and they get kind of heavy. You'll see that they're full of grease. Okay, so we've got that. Now what we need to do is put the bearing races into the hub. I mean, an easy way to do it, I suppose you could take it down to your auto parts store and see if they could press them in. A more manly way of doing it and taking fate into your own hands is to drive them in yourself. So what you can do, no grease or anything like that. So what you do is you just set that bearing race in there, okay? And you'll see at the bottom of this, there's a little stop. And you drive that bearing race in all the way to the stop, okay? And it will stop. One of the things to use is a socket, and you get a socket the size of that bearing race. You don't want to get anything bigger, because you don't want to damage your, especially here in this case, you've got aluminum, and you want to get one that is really the size of that bearing race, so if you do happen to slip off, you're not deforming that bearing race, because that is not a good thing. So we've got our hammer here, and we're going to hold this. Keep your fingers out of the way. And you just want to look at it, make sure you're driving it in straight. And actually, once you get it inside, like I am now, you get a much more confident feel. You can this socket fits inside, and what you want to do is just take your time, and you want to make sure that's all the way down. I think we still got a little more to go. And you can hear the difference now. That is all the way in. And you just want to check your work, make sure that you've got it all the way in, and again, that it's not crooked at all. You don't want to have a crooked bearing race. So that's a bearing race in. Won't be using that one again, so we want to flip this over. And we want to go the other side. If you can, try not to get greasy hands all over the rotors. We're going to clean them off with some brake cleaner before we're done. This one's a little more tricky. We've got a little lip inside here that we're only going to be able to drive this in part of the way. I've got a 36mm socket that we use for the rear axle. So we're going to go ahead and drive that in. But they're only part of the way, and then we're going to use a drift, because there's a little inner lip in there where our seal goes. And we are just about there to that lip. And now that we've got it in there, as you can see, I'm just kind of taking my time. There's no rush to this. You're only gonna do this once. Okay, so now we're about at that inner lip. So we're going to convert over, go to a drift, and I probably need a helper. I probably need somebody from the audience to come and help me hold this. And here's Kirk from the audience. You didn't know that we have a studio audience to hold this here at EVTV. And I'm just kind of working myself around with this, because again, we don't want it to go, we don't want it to get one side go down too far without the other. And I'm below that lip now. So this is getting a little bit easier. And we just got a little to go here. Go ahead and spin that a little. I'm feeling, I think, the bottom. And you boys know what that's like. You always want to feel the bottom. So, we are in all the way with that bearing race. Now, what we're going to want to do here, I want to go ahead and drop some grease inside here. Some people do, some people don't. I don't know if it helps or not, but let's just put some in there. What you don't want to have is grease up on this, right here in this lip, or on this seal, because what happens is it's just so greasy that it really won't drive in. And we're going to have to clean this off anyway. Okay, so we're going to drop this bearing in. Going to go ahead and put this seal on here, and we're going to have to tap it in. It shouldn't take a lot to tap this seal in, and if it doesn't stay in, then what you means you've got a little bit of grease on it. But looks like we're getting lucky today. And it looks like we have an inner seal. We've also got a spacer, and Kirk, you might want to grab that spacer for me. It's right underneath the handle there. Right. Yep. Perfect.
Man, it's coming out.
That's coming out. All right. Then we've got to clean it. Can I have the carburetor? I mean, the cleaner there. As you can see, it doesn't take much. You don't have to have a lot of junk on it. And we have apparently just enough to where it wants to come out. So you've seen what we didn't really want to see. So let's clean that off, and let's go ahead and try this again. Hey, clean rag. Is there a clean one anywhere? Ah, Jack's got one. Should have known. All right.
So, Kemosabe, what do you got going on here?
Well, this thing just has to be clean, and we're playing with grease, and we want to make sure once we've got this on that this axle seal stays in place. It will, because it'll have the pressure of the outer of the bolt to bolt it onto the spindle, but it's just got to be clean, or this just doesn't want, I think in steel hub, I think it stands a much better chance of staying in aluminum. It just does not want to stay unless it's completely clean. Let's give it a second to see if it finds its way out. But I think we're in good shape. I think it's going to stay. And that was just a tiny little bit of contamination on there. And that wasn't much. Is it staying?
No.
It's coming out. Well, then we just got to whack it. I think I've licked it.
Maybe.
Let's go ahead and we'll put this spacer in. This spacer is going to end up, I don't know if you can see this, on the spindle here, just to stand that off a little bit. Good idea just to go ahead and put it in here, because that means you won't forget it. Okay, so we have this prepared. So what we're going to do at this point is going to head and bolt it up onto the spindle. Then we're going to go ahead and clean off this rotor, because as you can see, we had a lot of contamination from my hands and from the axle grease. So we're going to go ahead and show you now how we bolt this up. All right, so now we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install this on our spindle. But what I want to do first is slop a bunch of axle grease on here. So worst thing that happens is you find a bunch of axle grease on your spindle. I mean, how bad is that? And this stuff's a couple of bucks. Bearings are not, well, unless we buy the ceramic bearings, which we can't get in a tapered bearing at this point. So, but you know, grease is cheap, and having to do this, even though it's a lot of fun, at least that I make it look like it is, it's still work and it's downtime, and you don't want to have to replace these bearings. Okay, so we're going to put this on now onto our axle. Okay, slide that on. Going to grab our outer seal, our outer bearing. Put that on, and that makes everything a lot better. There we go. Okay, now, I said that we were going to reuse this. You can see it a little bit better now. It's got a little, I don't know what you call that, a little tip. How's that? And it's kind of sticking out there, and the axle has a place for it to go with the spindle. Drop that on right there, and it won't wander around the axle. We didn't show you this because we hate this thing so bad. There's a very noisy speedometer cable that used to be located inside this spindle, and we removed it. In fact, I cut it with a bolt cutter and tore it out. It has made so much noise. It stretched. It, in fact, broke at one point, and we put the GPS speedometer in here, which is much better for the kind of testing we do too with the tires. There is a right and a wrong way to put it. This side, with looks like almost a washer that's attached to it, that is the side that goes toward that. And this is going to go on with opposite threads on this side. So you can fight it for days trying to put it on the other way. Just make sure that axle is all the way around. Excuse me, and there I go the wrong way. I'm confused. Don't follow me. Run this down until it's tight. You know that it's bottomed out. Spin this, okay? Then back it off a little. Just, it's hard to think in reverse here. Check this, make sure there's no play. I can feel a little play. What you want to do is just run this thing down until you have the best movement, the least amount of resistance, and no play. I can feel some play. I don't feel any play right there. And stop. Just leave it there and test that. That feels pretty good. Then you're going to take, in this case, I believe a 6mm Allen key, except unless you do that. And we're going to want to tighten this Allen head. Test for any play. You should have any play in this at all, front and back. If you try to wiggle it, no play, and that should go very freely. Remember, you do have fresh grease in there, so you are going to feel some resistance. Okay, and tighten that up. Now, what we want to do here is take a clean rag, because we have contaminated everything with grease. Even if it's just your hands. If you're even like me and don't like dirt all over you, it's even just the oil on your hands. So what you want to do is clean this rotor entirely. The front surface, this side, back, and I'm just using brake cleaner, and that will get you a nice clean contact surface. Okay, see if I can turn this wheel so you might be able to see a little better on the next part. Okay, now we're going to check the caliper, because this caliper body, as you can see, this is the center of the caliper body. When we put this on, you know, all these cars are a little different. We don't want this, this housing to be grinding against any of the rotor. So we've got some shims here. We've got some washers. I've got 3 of them. And we're going to go ahead and see what we need for washers. I'm going to go ahead and try all 3. And what we want to basically get is this rotor centered inside of this this groove, the smallest groove here, and that will give us the best braking. I put our hardened washer. Got a hardened washer on the head of the bolt side, and we've got a hardened washer on this side. Now we may not need all 3, but we're going to go ahead and just see where this puts us in relation to that rotor. And I'm probably going to need a flashlight or something. Okay, now you can't see this, but we're actually way off, so we'll be fine with 2 washers. So we're going to pull one of these out. And you may find that on one side or the other side, you need all 3 washers, you need 2 washers, you need 1 washer. You know, don't be afraid to try a couple of different combinations here. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up and basically just pre-run this and see what we've got with it all tight, because this is kind of critical. And the most critical thing is, sure, if it's a little bit off center, that's not that bad. The most critical thing is you just don't want this housing touching the rotor at all. And with 2, we've got it right in the center. So we're going to go ahead and use 2 washers. And we're going to run this. Put our other bolt in here. Let's just take another look. And we're hitting. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this spring that we're going to need to hold the disc brake pads in. Show you how we install this later. Oh. Pooh. We're going to have to shorten the bolts a little bit. And this happens. We've got to take our bolts to the grinder a little bit and take a millimeter or so off of them to put them back in, because what's happening is the bolts are hitting the back of the rotor. We've got it all, we've got this thing running down the center, but we've got our bolts on there. So we're going to have to take the caliper off and run over to the grinder and shave a little bit off our bolts. All right, so what we decided to do was, instead of taking some meat off of that bolt, we just put another washer on the side of it. So here's what I was trying to get it to do, was to rotate freely. We're looking in here, our rotor is running right down the center of this. We took this off. This is what is our retainer for our pads, our brake pads. And these are double piston. So your surface goes in, slide in, and this is how you'll actually change them. This is actually really easy to change. Don't put your hands all over these. We've got everything very clean. And this, you can see, as a little raise comes in from this side, and it's going to go over a tab. You're just going to have to kind of work with all of this to get it through. There's really nothing you can do. Just need a little screwdriver. And we've got that one going. Get those two. Kind of get these lined up in their respective holes here. That just usually takes a second. There we go. Just kind of wiggle all that around. There's a little tab over here that you just have to lift this retaining clip over. One on the brake pad and one there. And there you go. So now we've got all of that on. Our rotor is centered in there. We just had to use another washer to shim it. Last thing we're going to do is put our brake line on. And again, this is not something you would do at the end with those rubber brake lines, because they don't swivel at all. So we're just going to go ahead and attach this brake line. And there we have it. We have our Willwood caliper on there. Our rotor, we're going to go ahead and drop this dust cap in. And that is the installation of the Willwood aluminum calipers, the air-cooled aluminum hats and brake rotors, new steel lines. Again, you saw all new bearings going in there, how we do that. And we should have a pretty cool setup. And we lost, oh God, I can't remember, 20 pounds on each side by putting this on. So I'll be really interested to see how this car autocrosses and how it feels. But that is the front. All right, so now we're going to install everything that we need. We've got our bracket on here for our new caliper. But the caliper, you can put the brakes on when it's on the vehicle, but it's kind of a pain. And what we also are going to have to do is make sure that the body doesn't hit the like we did in the front, we're going to have to shim it and make sure that the body of the caliper doesn't hit the rotor. So since maybe some of you haven't seen these before, and these are, if you go to a rear disc brake conversion, these are the calipers that you'll get. And you can see that this is the business end, and all you do is take these two little 8mm screws, 13mm heads, just go ahead and pull them out, and the caliper comes apart just like this, okay? What we're going to want to do, these pads have little springs on them, and you're going to put the springs in here, making sure that they don't fall through this little hole. So when these pads are in, you do not want these springs protruding through the bottom. You want them inside of the housing itself. That's a little bit tricky to do. And it's good to just practice with it out of the car and do it dry your first time you do it. And you actually can change these pads without taking the calipers off of the vehicle. They're actually pretty quick. This just goes on. It leaves your work like this, and what you'll see is a little cutout. And what your goal is to get that little brake pad in that little cutout there, and then you've got another one on this side, and you're going to get the brake pad sitting in it there. So let's go ahead and do this. My hands are clean, so we're still going to clean this up later with brake cleaner, but we're in better shape at this point. And now you can see that this just all kind of fits together here. And what we don't want to have, again, is these springs protruding, and they want to do that because they're on a little pivot. And it's kind of a pain, but there's not a whole heck of a lot that you can do. So get this one up under here where it's springing. Get this one in here. Then you're just going to press down on the spring. And get your screws started. Okay, there's one. Keep this pad up here. Check to make sure your spring is not coming out the bottom. There we go. Now we got that one started. Just when you're tightening everything, just check. We're good. Our springs aren't protruding from the bottom. So if you haven't done this before, this is just a good way to check it. Like I said, you can do this on the car, but it was just easier for you to see it with it off the vehicle if you've never done this. And again, these are the same style calipers that you're going to get in a disc brake conversion. If you happen to get one of these cars with drum brakes, don't worry about it, because this is really what you're doing. Let's get those nice and tight. And there we go. It's sitting right in here. You can see it's lined up there. Got it lined up in here. Got the pad surfaces showing. Don't have the spring protruding through. So now your caliper's built, and we'll be able to put that on and adjust the distance where the rotor will sit right in the middle, just like we had to do with the front. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and put in the brake line. The brake lines that came with this kit, if you have a Spyder, don't work, because in a regular Beetle, your hard line comes into a junction T back at the transmission. Here it doesn't. The transmission's sitting right here. You have a much shorter brake line run from this point. So what we had Pete at Air Cool do was send us out another set of the front brake lines. So if you have a Spyder and you want to do this conversion, let them know that you need 2 complete sets of the front brake lines in order to do this conversion. So we're going to go ahead and take an 11/16 and an 11 millimeter here and grab our brake line. We can get it. Okay. Pull that off, get something just in case we get any fluid there. Got another one of those little clips in the back. Grab a pair of pliers. Just gonna have to pull it. And we'll install that. There's our old brake line. So we've got the same length brake line there. Pop this big end through that has the groove. This is the end that's going to go into the banjo fitting. We'll show you how we do that later. That's one of the last things that we install. Get your lines going. Clip, just like in the front, we've got the curved is going to go away from the tab here that this all fits on. And that clips in right like that. It's good to have it on when you tighten all this. Again, your 11/16 and 11 millimeter. All right, that's on good. Go ahead and tighten our brake line here. Just like an AN fitting, it's a little swivel fitting. So get that little guy tight. Hold this 11/16. Tighten that up. We can go ahead and put on the banjo fitting, and this may be a way for you to see it. A banjo fitting has a little hole in it here, and it goes around. So instead of it going into the hole for the brake line, banjo fitting goes like this. You have 2. And again, there's a hole here in the bolt, and the bolt's also hollow. So the brake fluid is going to be coming through this line and go down into the caliper. Just a much nicer way to do this. There's 2 brass washers that you're going to want to put on here. This caliper is going to go like this, and we're going to have to get our brake line maybe up. We'll have to see how we do this little guy. It was different on the other side, and that's what you're always going to have to do with your car is everything's going to be different, and what we want to try to do is route this brake line so that it doesn't rub. So that's why I'm just playing with it here right now to see what we've got. We may have to put this banjo fitting on different. The other side it went down, kept our brake line from hitting. On this side, we may have to have the banjo fitting up, but I want to show you all this with the rotor off because you really won't be able to see it. I'm not going to mount anything, but these are all the dry fitting things that you're probably going to want to do. So you figure this is bolted up like this, and we may want the banjo fitting to go up. Yeah, in this case, we're going to have the banjo fitting go up later, and that will keep us out of harm's way. All right, so now we know how we're going to set up our banjo fitting. Let's go ahead and drop on our rotor. The purpose of all of this was to lose as much weight as we possibly could. So we already know that we've got about a pound, a little over a pound, I think, in wheels and tires that we've saved. And we've got about 8 pounds or so in rotors. We've gained about a half a pound in the bracket. This is a little beefier bracket. Same exact caliper. We had a dragging problem, we think, with the rear brake, so that's why we went ahead and just replaced the calipers. I mean, because we don't know if we had a sticking caliper or a bad rotor. So we're just going to go ahead now and put spacers on here. What you want to do, Pete's kit came with a bunch of spacers. That's one of the one of the large ones, and all you want to do is set this brake drum off. In our application with the short axles, we actually went in and made a little spacer. We got a shim, just had to kind of file it out for the axle, size of the axle there. And we're just going to pop that on, and that's just going to set us off enough. Okay, so now we're on. Let's let me move this because that's what we're hearing. We're free, we're not hitting anything. We've got another spacer. Goes out on this end. You can see this so that when you're tightening up the, and we're just going to run that castellated nut up with air. Just go ahead and put that in there. There we go. And we're going to run this up a bit and see what we've got. Air is cool. Now you can feel that. Spins real nice. We've got that new bearing in there. I'm going to put a cotter pin through here. Welcome back, Mr. Cotter Pin. Yeah, let's see. Looks like we may want to just back this little guy off a tiny bit. Can't find my small hammer, so I had to borrow Jack's hammer today. Spin that around and just pull one of these legs up like this. Go ahead and tap that up. We'll run the other one up too. And that's secured. And this is rolling pretty nice here. That feels really good. All right, so now for the caliper. So just like on the front, we can use washers, and we've got a couple of different washers here, a couple of different thicknesses. Got some wavy washers here, and just different sizes. Because what we're going to want to do is shim this up. But let's put a washer like this, washer like this. This is going to go on the outside. And our caliper goes right over the rotor. And what we need to look at is the housing of the caliper touching the rotor at all. With no shims, we are actually doing really good. So the other side, we needed 2 shims. On this side, it looks like we don't need any shims. So, you know, your cars are all different. Don't let that bother you that you're not using the same number of shims or whatever. You can always take it off again and make sure that it's going to work correctly. But don't feel because there's 2 shims over there that you need to have 2 shims over here. Get this one started. And you're going to hear a little bit because that's this brake pad hitting. So don't let that bother you. We may have to use a small washer, a real small one. on that other side. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and do that. So don't let any of this bother you. You've got to get this correct. Otherwise, you will eat your rotor apart if you don't do this step properly. And this washer may end up being too thick. We're just going to have to play with them. And there's no easy way around this when you're putting this car together for the first time. You guys are watching us do it for the first time. Let's do the other side. And make sure we're using the same washer. This is the thinnest one we had. Good thing to do is to flip that caliper up, get your spacer in here, and just put enough of the bolt head, of the bolt through, to catch it. And then, because it's really tough to get your finger in there and try to get that in. You drop them and they just go everywhere. I know it's probably tough for all of you to see, but it's a, we're just trying to thread this bolt in. And we've got it. These were 17 millimeter, I believe. So there's not a lot we can do but just kind of try this out and see. That washer may be too thick. And we may have to go scrounging around in the shop to find one. Yep, we are rubbing a little. Okay, well, so we know what to do. We're gonna have to go digging around through the shop for a thinner washer. We got a couple with the kit, different sizes, but we need one even thinner. And I may just use one of our Belleville washers here, if we've got a couple of them, because they're fairly thin. Went all the way around. All right, Jack's over there. He's on the job. Uh-oh. Jack out here behind the camera today. Oops, that wasn't it. That was a different one.
That's the one you dropped.
I did too, didn't I? I guess. Oh, that must just come flying on. That was probably one I lost a few hours ago from another part of the car. All right, this one's going in. And we'll tighten this down now and see where we are in relation to that rotor. And this is kind of a critical deal because you will chew your rotors and your calipers up. I mean, eventually it'll stop making noise when the metal's all ground down. So it will go away. But that's not necessarily a good thing. And we already had some brake issues back here that we don't know really what was going on. We may have had a warped rotor or a sticky caliper. We're not sure. tighten these up in a second. Okay, now the only thing you're hearing now is when it comes around and it's hitting the brake pad a little bit. I don't know if you guys can pick that up, but see I pulled that brake pad away and you're not hearing anything. Press it on, you're hearing a little bit of drag. So we know now that the body, and you can see right here, little mark from the bottom of the, that's another thing to look for, is any marking up on the rotor. Right here you can see where that brake pad is beginning to hit the rotor, and that's fine, that's what we want. So let's go ahead and tighten this 17 millimeter down. Get that caliper on there good. And Pete provided, you know, lock washers, plenty of washers, but we found that we had to make a shim, and we just had to use a couple of different washers. Okay, now the banjo fitting. We've got a real long brake line, so what we're going to do is to keep this away from as much as we can. So here's our banjo fitting again. Brass washer from whatever you deem as the top, can be the top or the bottom, then a washer between the banjo fitting and your brake caliper housing. Just make sure you've got that run down real good. Try to get this so it's not touching anything. I believe this was a 13 millimeter. Nope, it wasn't a 13. Excuse me. 9/16. Let's go ahead, and this one you're going to want to crush it pretty good, because that you know, you're going to be crushing a little brass washer, so you'll feel it. And right about there, just, and you crush it. So, all right, we have our new steel brake lines. We have new brake pads, new caliper, new rotor and hub. We're torqued on. We've got a cotter pin there. We had to put our new bracket on. We've got new bearings on both sides. We have kind of completed the installation of the air-cooled kit at this point. We are going to replace, we had, when we were out in Carlisle, we had one of these swedges come off of our emergency brake line, and the kit, the air-cooled kit, is fairly complete. Once you get it all in the same place at the same time, it took 3 days to get all that, and you know, one of them was just, this is a non-standard vehicle. He sends off new emergency brake lines as well. So it's a good idea if you get them, just replace them. This car, you have to have an emergency brake. Otherwise, we would have went to the Willwood calipers back here and saved ourselves, you know, probably a couple of pounds anyway. So that does it. You've seen the fronts, the rears. We saved ourselves about 60 pounds in unsprung weight, 40 of it up front where we should feel a lot of it, and another 10 aside for 20 back. That is pretty nice, though.
Brain, I got to tell you, I'm just heartbroken that hasn't made a tremendous difference.
I know.
In our mileage. But I have to also tell you that it's really cool.
It looks pretty cool. Some
and
things
the
are just
car
cool.
feels different.
Yeah.
And it feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
We've still got a little bit of something going on with the front end, turning and you know, if we do a tight turn, getting into the rubber,
yeah,
we need to address. Yeah. But those calipers and wheels, we've lost 60 pounds. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The wheels look better.
Yes, they look beautiful.
The front wheels, the road feels better.
Yeah, it really does.
And you can go down the freeway 70 miles an hour and take your hands off the steering wheel. It just tracks right down, and we didn't even get in alignment.
No, we didn't. I mean, we didn't take the front end apart, but yeah, you never know. But
so I'm really pleased with the upgrade and really disappointed in the results.
I know.
And let's take a look at what happened.
Okay.
And see if you become as confused as I look.
All right. Back here in the back.
Gentlemen, get your NASA memory foam pillow, your blankie glass of milk, you can order a double. And your cookies, it's chalkboard time. We spent $3,100 on the Spyder on an upgrade. And I'm pleased to report that we did get some results and that it was improved, albeit modestly. Our weight dropped from 1,903 pounds to 1,843, 44 pounds in there. And we went and redid our testing. I've written the results up here in red. At the 40-mile-an-hour rate, we dropped from 21.2 to 20.4 amp hours. That's a drop from 135 to 1.30077 amp hours per mile, and a whopping 1 watt-hour per mile to 162, giving us a 100% range of 138 instead of 132. At 50 miles an hour, we dropped from 32.8 to 31.8, a full amp hour. We went from 1.47 to 1.42 or 3 on amp hours per mile, from 176 down to 171 watt hours per mile, and now have a 126 mile 100% range instead of 122. At 60 miles an hour, we went from 39.6 to 37.9. That's from 1.744 to 1.669. And that's a drop from 209 watt hours per mile to 201. And it brings our range from 103 up to 108. At 70 miles an hour, we dropped from 47.5 to 47.1. Pretty meager gain here. From 2.09 to 2.07, from 251 watt hours per mile to 249, and we climbed from 86 miles maximum range at 70 miles an hour to 87. So, our work on the running gear had a positive result. I have to tell you that I am underwhelmed. However, I did notice something, and you kind of want to do this when you're, if you have some available information, note it even if it isn't quite what you're after. Some strange things happen to our RPM. Now, this is a little fuzzy in that our RPM is not fairly exact, and our speed isn't either. I'm trying to maintain 40. That's from 38 to 42. The same with the RPM. But instead of having 1,600, I had 1,825 this time. At 50, I went from 2,100 to 2,275. I'm not even climbing the same amount here. This I thought was 2,600. It looks like 2,725. This was 3,100. It looks like 3,150. This is not even rational. I sent Brain out to do these over again, and he came back with the same numbers. That's the numbers we got. I don't know what to tell you. But I did figure out part of what was going on here. The reason they went up is we changed tire sizes. This car had a 165/80 R15 that has a circumference of 79.8 inches and a diameter of 24.5. When we put the new 185/65 R15s on, that has a circumference of 76.91, almost 3 inches less, and a 25.4 diameter instead of 24.5. And that actually changes our gearing. Your tires are part of your gearing. And so we're going at higher RPM than we are at lower RPM. So I thought, maybe RPM has something to do with this. And I went back to Speedster. Turns out it's 2,025 pounds. We reweighed the car. And we found something else. I have the Moon Eye hubcaps on it, so we haven't been checking the tire pressure very well. Turns out, in the course of the last year, it's gone down to 32, 33 pounds. So we very carefully set both cars up for exactly 42 pounds in each tire all the way around. When I went to test the Speedster again on a retest, things got to be very interesting. For one thing, we at 40 miles an hour, I actually dropped from 17.9 to 15.6. This is more than I gained with $3,100 of investment up here on the Spyder. I got more than that with 10 pounds of air in the tires on the Speedster. And that brought us down to exactly 1 amp hour per mile, 120 watt hours per mile, and 180 mile range. At 60 miles an hour, it dropped me from 36.3 to 33.6, which is better than I did up here with the $3,100 worth of equipment. Again, that dropped me from 1.599 amp hours per mile to 1.48, from 192 watt hours per mile to 178, and brought my range up from 113 to 122 miles at 60 miles an hour. This is the best build we've ever done. No doubt about it. Let's talk about the RPM change. Let's see. At 40, this one went from 1,600 to 1,825. I had this one at 1,600. What would happen if we ran the Speedster in third gear? At 2,000 RPM would be 40 miles an hour. What would happen to our amp hours and so our energy usage? Sure enough, at 2,000 RPM instead of 1,600, I go from 1 amp hour to 1.0132. That's another 2 watt hours per mile and a 3 mile difference in range. Not very much, actually. When I go to 60 miles an hour, it's somewhat better. My spread is a little bit different. I'm going from 2,500 to 3,100, doing 60 in third gear. And so this goes from 33.6 to 35.2, and from 1.48 to 1.555. Back up close to my 32-pound tire pressure, 187 watt hours per mile, and 115 miles per charge. So RPM does make a difference. We had noted that we had kind of the same RPMs, and despite having a different ring and pinion, but we had different tires. When we put it where we have the same size tires, we indeed have a pretty big difference in RPM, and lower RPM clearly is a little bit more efficient. So we got some efficiency here by being in lower RPM, and we gained some efficiency here by new components and lighter components on the automobile. I'm not convinced yet what's happened here. The RPM's a little bit, we gain a little bit with our upgrade. It still doesn't quite approach this 18.9%. In fact, I'm at 1 amp hour here and 1.3 amp hours here at 40 miles an hour. This one will give me a range of 138, and this one will give me a range of 180. This is the same battery pack, the same motor, the same controller, the same size tires, inflated to the same pressure in a car that is now, this is 1843. And this one is 2,025 pounds. This should still be a lot more efficient than this one is in all respects. We have exactly the opposite situation 138 mile range at 40 mile an hour, 180 on here. We're at 87 here and at 94 here. Potentially more. I didn't measure at 70 with the inflated tires, but here at 60 we're at 108 and 122. That's a significant difference. That's a difference that has to be explained away. And our upgrade didn't cover it, and our RPM doesn't entirely cover it. I can see some of this. I'm at 2,500 here and at 2,725 here. That does not explain a 122 to 108 range difference. That's 14 miles range difference for 225 RPM. I guess I don't quite buy that. And so we're going to have to keep looking at this car. I really had expected that with these upgrades, I kind of knew it was rolling resistance, but I expected with this upgrade for it to get better and us to have a nice, neat wrap-up episode for you here. It is not to be, and that happens sometimes. Let's go see what else we can learn about these two cars. Maybe Brain has an idea. This episode of EVTV is brought to you by the Winston Battery Company Limited, makers of high-capacity lithium-yttrium rare earth cells, including the popular 160 amp-hour model featuring cycle lives in excess of 5,000 cycles when discharged to 70%, the longest useful working life of any available battery of any chemistry. A leading battery technology scientist, inventor, and entrepreneur since 1995, Mr. Winston Chung envisions a new world of clean electric power for the dawn of a new era of electric vehicles. For your next electric vehicle design project, contact Winston Battery Limited. Energy for a bright future.
Is that how you're looking? How I'm feeling?
So do you have a lot of numbers in your head?
There's a lot of numbers in my head. It's like, holy moly. Oh, man.
The story has kind of a happy ending.
I like happy endings.
Brain come up with a brilliant idea that instead of doing all this 100 miles of testing, draining the packs down to near nothing.
Really to near nothing, yeah. Limp at home last night.
And me coming back wrung out and tore up from the battle with the trucks. Why don't we have a soapbox derby out front?
Yep.
Let's see what happened.
Okay.
Where's me mark? I see it. Is he rolling?
Still rolling? Yep, still rolling. Can you hear me? All right, good.
So here we are with the Speedster, Brain.
Okay, we're going to try this one too.
We're going to try this one on the Brain Noto Soapbox Derby.
Soapbox Derby 2011.
2011. Let me get my timer.
Okay.
And
get my hands off and we'll see how you do.
Here we go.
All right.
Everybody in?
You got it? Yeah.
My clock went off.
Stop there, Jack.
We have to do it again.
Okay. The clock went off?
Yeah. Braden here kind of had an interesting idea, as we're not really doing too well with our results and our testing. We're getting a lot of results.
We're getting a lot of results.
None of it makes any damn sense.
Not yet, anyway. Huh? I guess we need more numbers.
So Braden suggests we hold a soapbox derby.
We like soapbox derbies.
We're going to go out in front of the shop, and I'm not even going to turn the car on. We're going to put it in neutral, and I've got the handbrake here. We're on a slight incline, and then it levels out. I'm going to use my handy-dandy iPhone here to time this, and we're going to do a time and distance when we let off the brake and just let it roll.
Just see,
and
where,
see
it
where it stops.
Okay.
And we'll compare the two vehicles that way. I don't know if there's any information in this, but it's something to do on a Saturday afternoon after we've blown our Friday show.
That's right. What the heck?
Something to do. I'm pretty much ready, guys.
Okay. You got your wheels straight and everything, Jack?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, probably pretty good.
Are we ready?
I think we're ready.
I'm going to hit start. Well, we
Uh-oh.
got to do this all in one
You
coordinated
gotta be,
motion.
yes.
And we got to be out of the traffic.
We're looking pretty good right now.
And there's the
Hey,
start.
you're rolling.
We're off like a herd of turtles.
Look at that.
This is autocross.
And there he goes. Well, at least he's out of the intersection, if nothing else, and still rolling. It is still rolling. Still rolling.
They're driving like a
Almost
bat out of
out.
hell.
Watch out for that.
You'll kill us
Car.
all.
Well, he didn't get in shit this time.
No, I'm fine. I think we found the problem.
What was it?
I think this car won't roll. And there we are.
We got a little better than last time by about a car length.
I'm going to go try it again.
Yeah, because I mean the other car. What, we got a couple 100 pounds now? How many? 200 pounds in the other car? Extra? You think that would pull us down that far?
I don't know.
Gotta go run it again.
So how much do you weigh?
This was 18.
How much do you weigh?
190.
Hop in.
Want to see if it rolls further? Me in there too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's give it a shot.
I'm betting it don't. Okay. Whoops. There we go. So we made a second run in the Porsche Spyder 550, including 190 pounds of Noto meat from your grade school physics. You'll note that you can drop an object of two different weights and they strike the ground at the same time. The same thing applies here. We're not going to go any further. What I didn't expect was that we wouldn't go as far. And so there's something going on with rolling resistance on Spyder 550. It simply will not roll the same as Speedster does. The reason this is a little perplexing is we're down to the only difference really being the transmission. The Spyder has a 3.88 ring and pinion, and the Speedster has a 3.44. We're going to have to do a little research. Apparently this has some impact on the rolling resistance. All the components from the axle on out are brand new, quite adjusted, and wheels spin quite freely with it up on the rack. We're in neutral, but we're still turning that differential in the car, and that's the difference we're down to. The Spyder didn't roll as far as it did on the first run. We're going to incorporate a third run of the Spyder just to make sure, but again, it doesn't even make it 2/3 of the way that the Speedster did on the same very slight incline going down the hill.
Isn't that something? I could have saved you a whole hell of a lot of trouble. But there's no way I was going to wave you off. I waited till the bitter end.
If we did that at the beginning, what would we have done?
Yeah, nothing.
We'd have done the upgrade that we did.
Yeah.
And nothing got better.
Nothing got better. Yeah.
Why does this car not roll, Brain?
You know, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't have the slightest idea.
It's not weight. We put brain in the car to make it roll more. And
yeah, we thought weight would help us.
This is a lousy soapbox.
Yeah.
It's not the aerodynamics, because all the testing was done in the sub 2 mile an hour.
Yeah. The wind was whipping through the cockpit.
The tires are inflated exactly the same pressure.
42 pounds. Yep.
42 pounds. They're the same size tire.
185, 65, 15 low rolling resistance tires that I have pretty much the same rating, within a tenth of a point. The Michelins to the Bridgestones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're identical.
We're neutral. Can't be anything in the transmission.
No, transmission wasn't turning. Good calipers up front, I know for sure, and they don't drag. A little drag in the back, but we know we've also got probably a little drag in the Speedster. Same calipers in the back. So what else did we do? Our bearings, our outer axle bearings. We replaced with those ceramics in the Spyder.
Yes, we did. We put lightweight oil in the
Yep,
training.
lightweight oil. Yeah, we got that synthetic 7590.
We put new bearings and packed them in the front of the Spyder.
And I set them up as loose as I possibly could to get as much, you know, free roll as we could. I don't know.
Your mother-in-law isn't in that car, is she?
No. No. My ex-mother-in-law?
Pick one.
That's right. Well,
You've got like a small basketball team of ex-mother-in-laws.
I realize I can't remember names, birth dates, anything. I'm ruined.
I know, but you're one of the few guys that can field their own basketball team and mother-in-laws.
and the NBA better be looking out because they wreak havoc.
For EVTV, I'm Jack Rickard.
And I'm Brian Noto.
We'll see you all next week.